suddenly we're busy around here. We've got storms on both coasts, and the one on the left coast is huge. I mean, it's absolutely huge. And we're going to talk about that. And yes, there is snow in the forecast for some areas. Beware upper lows, they can pull surprises. And, well, there's no surprise here. It's Joe Rayo and Joe Chaffee on the Joe and Joe Weather Show podcast. And if you'd like to support the Joe and Joe Weather Show podcast, where it doesn't cost you a nickel, just do your Amazon shopping using the referral link that's pinned to the top of the chat board. And it's also on the descriptor to this podcast. You just buy your stuff, and Amazon throws Joe and I back a little bit of coin, and I do mean a little bit. And therefore, um, it's easy. And of course, Joe, we appreciate your support of the Joe and Joe Weather Show podcast. So, it's funny. You go through long stretches of weather, Joe, and sometimes things break your way and sometimes they don't in terms of the forecast. And then, of course, we've been in this horrific dry pattern that's gone on for, the better part of almost 2 months, maybe some places a little bit longer than that. It looks to me like this weather front, we've been talking about this strong front, the occlusion, the triple point low that's going to form and move right overhead. It looks like it might be a bit more vigorous. And so I got a little more bullish on the rainfall for tomorrow night into Thursday morning. And the other thing, I always get nervous when you have these gigantic upper lows that are really, really strong like this one, and they have all sorts of short waves running around it. I was looking at some of the soundings too far from you, by the way, among them. The freezing level is in some cases as low as 950 millibars. That is not that far off the ground. And if you wind up getting some precipitation with intensity, uh, somebody's going to get some wet snow. And I'm thinking mountains, higher terrain, 750 feet or 1,000 feet up. There could be some places that could get some significant accumulating snows in the interior Northeast.
Well, Pete Bergman, mutual friend of ours, had asked me about snow, and I said, well, at this moment, I really don't think we're going to have to worry too much. Maybe north of I-84, and if it does happen, it won't start until probably Thursday night. Now, I'm also looking at a message from our other mutual friend, Bill Goodman from the National Weather Service, and he writes that the models differ on storm track, therefore possible rainfall amounts. Plus, we're starting off bone dry, so I doubt that they'll live up to their full potential. If I go in between the latest GFS European model forecast and cut that by a third, I think we could see anywhere from 1/2 to 1.5 inches of rain.
Okay,
The European,
what's the date on that post? Because that
uh,
sounds familiar. It sounds
November
like
November 17,
it
12,
was well,
2016.
that was 2 days ago.
Yeah,
Okay, go on.
but getting into the part about snow, he says, I'm not wading into those murky waters yet. Let's get the rainfall idea right first. Right now, the ending as snow idea appears more likely to happen well inland, as in north of I-84, but not down to the metro area and the coast. So I wrote back to him and I said, I agree with you 100%. And he wrote back, and this was just only a few minutes ago. He
Right.
said, some of those model forecasts of big snow across the interior Thursday night had me antsy. As Tony Gigi used to say, another mutual friend who was at the National Weather Service in Philadelphia, as Tony Gigi used to say, there's always a surprise beneath an upper low.
Yes, there is, and in past years in situations similar to this, some places have gotten big surprises. I will, since it's read Bill Goodman's personal messages night, I'll read you one from 5:15 this afternoon. Um, it looks, I looked a little more closely. All right, hold on. There was a couple of messages. Just a second. Let me make sure. All right, so first one, because we were both talking, and I wrote to him, getting a little nervous about the upper low and the way the models are handling this for Thursday and Friday. Somebody well inland is going to get clobbered. And he said, could happen. I'm keeping it in elevation dependent, 1 to 2 inches for Rockland, Passaic, Orange, Poconos, and Orange counties. Poconos northward could cash in nicely. And then he goes on, my high end values for Orange and Northwest Jersey are 1 to 2 inches in the valleys, 3 to 4 in the high elevations, and 6 in the Poconos, Monticello, North and West. Maybe a coating on the grass in the outer burbs, Northwest, not going that high at the moment. And then, as far as the rain goes, I looked a little more closely. Mesoscale forcing combo of strong mid-level cyclone. I know this is, weather, high-tech weather talk here. Strong mid-level cyclonic vorticity advection from the 500 millibar low, the upper low that we're talking about, and then 700 millibar front of Genesis. Our audience is leaving us in droves here. Could re- could really crank it out on the backside of the surface low after the occlusion. But this is still more than 2 days away, and for the exact location is dicey. Meanwhile, Tony Gigi, same quote, there is always a surprise beneath an upper low. And, you know, I'm kind of thinking now as far as the rain goes for tomorrow. I think tomorrow night, especially if there's convection involved, I think the range is going to be maybe 3/4 of an inch central New Jersey south, but north of there, it could easily be an inch to maybe an inch and a half, maybe even a little bit more in some places.
Well, the old saying that we've said is that Mother Nature always balances the checkbook. Thankfully, she's not going to balance it to the degree where we're going to have 8 or 9 inches in one sitting, which is what we need to really bust this drought wide open. But after so long, Joe, after 49 or 50 days of hardly any precipitation, it looks like come tomorrow night we're going to get hammered, and
Yeah,
especially after midnight. I said on my Facebook page between midnight tomorrow night and noontime on Thursday, probably that'll be the 12-hour interval where we're going to be seeing by far and away the heaviest amount of rain. And yes, we could throw in a thunderstorm as well. And then after that, with the upper low rolling by, who's to say, as you pointed out, as the cold levels start to get lower and closer to
yeah.
the surface, we'll see what happens.
Listen, I would not at all be surprised if you even see some wet snowflakes mixing in down at the coast before this is all said and done. Yeah, I don't think it's going to be anything more than just a few, wet snowflakes mixing in, and let's call it the cheapest of cheap thrills. But I think it's possible.
Well, the temperatures, what, a couple of weeks ago were in the
Well,
70s to the 80, and now all of a sudden, maybe in the next couple of days, some places will have several inches of accumulating wet snow. And
well,
boy, that's really, but
yeah, I know
that's the way.
they're all gonna flip. Some places on Friday, I mean, it may barely only get to 40 or low 40s from New York City south, and some places north and northwest of there, maybe, it'll be mid and upper 30s all day long on Friday.
Could very well be.
Yeah.
Would not be surprised. And
Meanwhile,
then add in the wind, which you know will only begin increasing again. It's kind of like we're underneath with the upper low. We're kind of like, this is a weird analogy, but we're in the eye of the storm to the degree that we're not going to see all that much wind on Friday. But then as this whole system moves off to the north and east, we're going to get backlashed with a strong northwesterly flow Saturday and perhaps into Sunday as well. So we'll have some strong gusty winds to deal with in the aftermath of all of this as we move into the upcoming weekend.
yeah, I mean, it really is it's a humongous upper low and very deep for this time of year. Meanwhile, take a look at this baby here. It made the national news tonight because I happened to be channel flipping through CBS when Nora O'Donnell used the word bombogenesis. Bombogenesis. Look at this animal that's off the coast of Washington State.
Right.
It was 1,010 millibars a little over 24 hours ago to the west of where it is now, obviously. It's got, and I have a buoy, I have a buoy observation. I mean, this is just really just classic signature uh, animal storm. It went over a buoy. Oh, now I lost the buoy. Hold on. Bill gave me the buoy link, so I'll get it back.
Oh, how cute.
You know, what, my grandkids?
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Well, that's about almost over a year ago, maybe longer. So this buoy, Joe, 300 nautical miles west of Aberdeen, Washington. It's station number 46005. Okay. The observation, southeast wind speed 48 knots, gusting to 64. The atmospheric pressure 28.07. It was based down to 952 millibars. I mean, just crazy. And by the way, if you're curious, the air temperature was 49, the dew point 48, the wind chill was 38. I mean, really just a you don't see these kinds of things too often. But when you do, at least the folks in the weather world, can look at this and sort of, it's kind of jaw dropping.
It is. And take a look at the final few frames of the loop as the sun is beginning to set over the Pacific Northwest. Look how dynamic and how dramatic, almost three-dimensional, this
Yeah.
swirl occurs in the atmosphere. This really is one hefty weather system. That
Yeah,
I
and it's
thought about
it,
this
it,
last
it
night.
yeah, it's never going to go on shore. It's just going to basically meander around out here for the next 3 days. So all of this moisture, I mean, you can follow the tail down to the south and then to the west, all the way out past the westernmost Aleutian Islands. I mean, this is just an incredible sight to behold. An equally incredible sight to behold, Joe, are our friends on the chat board tonight. And we want to give everybody a big hello. Welcome tonight to the Joe and Joe Weather Show podcast. And those of you watching in the background and not participating in the chat, you certainly can if you'd like. And if you got any questions, we'll take them. Subscribe to my YouTube channel so you don't miss the Joe and Joe Weather Show podcast, which is on Sunday through Thursday at 7:35 p.m. We're going to have a special Joe and Joe Weather Show podcast Friday night uh, with the FiOS crew. Uh, it's 5 years now since we met all met our demise, so we're going to have a bit of a reunion here. Friday, Brian Fitzgerald will be here, Addison Green will be here, and Jeff Banson, the big star in Providence, Rhode Island. So mark that down. And by the way, if you do like the show, and we already have 56 likes, so we'd love to get to 100 likes, hit the like button. All right, let's get going here. The first winter storm watches are up for a bunch of counties in the West Virginia mountains. I suspect that they're going to probably. I got to think they're going to probably put up uh, winter storm watches for parts of northern Pennsylvania and southern New York, including the Catskills, before this is maybe tomorrow by tomorrow at this time.
I would think, yeah, I would certainly agree on that, especially since in the Catskills, where the elevations run, 4,000 feet. I mean, up there, my goodness, they could see at least 4, maybe even as much as 8 inches, maybe even some of the highest terrain areas might even see as much as a foot. So, yeah, put up a
I
watch. What the
yeah,
heck?
I honestly think we're gonna see a few places that are gonna make our eyes bulge out in terms of snow amounts on Friday. We've got winter storm warnings up in north central North Dakota. County in northeast Montana has a blizzard warning. Winter weather advisories surround that, and also wind advisories and high wind watches up in the area through South Dakota into north central Nebraska. In the west, It's getting clobbered with the heavy coastal rains, strong winds. They have wind advisories, high wind warnings, winter storm warnings, and blizzard warnings are up for the mountains east of Seattle and Tacoma, with 1 foot plus amounts there, and it also extending those winter storm warnings down into the Sierra Nevadas. The purple off the Pacific Northwest coast. That's all. Those are all storm warnings. So we're talking 50 knots or higher. And I don't know what this color means. What does that mean? Oh, cool. Hurricane force wind warning, Joe.
Good
for
Lord.
for these areas in the coastal waters, not near the immediate coast, probably out beyond 20 or 30 miles. They have hurricane force wind warnings in effect. Clearly this is a monster that is in the western part of the United States, and here's the view from the U.S. point of view, centered, pretty much over the eastern part of the United States. You can see the Atlantic, sort of see the Pacific Northwest in that big storm, and you see the moisture. And now we got actually a fair amount of rain here today. I was really happy that we got some rain here in North Georgia, and it's been pretty much in the upper 50s and low 60s, which is going to be history because we're going to get pretty cold here for Thursday. I think Friday it may not get out of the 30s here. But looking at clouds and some rain. Now, this first lead area is falling apart. The surface system that moved through the Central Plains is now up just north of North Dakota. And now we're going to wait for some of the energy from that Pacific Northwest storm that comes in is going to kick this eastward and southeastward through the Great Lakes, and this gigantic upper low is going to develop, and that's going to be the driver for our rain tomorrow night into Thursday, and then the showery rains, and then the accumulating snows that are going to occur in the interior higher elevations for Thursday night and Friday, and maybe even lingering a bit into Friday night.
And I'm just reading here the heavy snow discussion from WPC, and this would be for days 2 and 3. That would mean for not tomorrow, Wednesday, but for Thursday and Friday. And they write the challenge through this period is where the heaviest snow will accumulate. No kidding. And especially outside of the higher terrain, how much snow can accumulate. The high confidence portion of the forecast involves the central Appalachians, where post-frontal northwesterly flow will produce impressive upslope ascent into a cold column. In other words, as the air reaches the hilly terrain, the mountainous terrain, the air is forced upward into a much colder environment, and that will produce frozen precipitation. While at the same time, the primary low from Michigan rotates southward to enhance the ascent locally areas in that same region. So this will result in a 2-day period of moderate to heavy snow, and WPC probabilities on day 2, that's Thursday, reach 30 to 50% for 4+ inches, with greater probabilities reaching above 90% for additional snowfall exceeding 4 inches on day 3. That would be Friday. So total accumulations may exceed 12 inches in the highest terrain areas of West Virginia, into the Maryland Panhandle, and locally as much as 4 to 8 inches as far south as the North Carolina Tennessee border. So all of a sudden, Joe, winter is staring us right in the face.
Yeah, and I put the
Where are all
snow
those
map.
people? And where are all those people who are saying winter's not coming? It's going to be another dud of a winter. It's going to be terrible. No, we're not going to see any stuff. And all of a sudden, we're talking about amounts of 6, 10, 12 inches for places as far south as Tennessee and North Carolina, as far north as the Maryland Panhandle, and probably also, they don't mention it here, I'm surprised, but they should also mention the Catskills, uh,
Yeah, and
Poconos.
maybe the Poconos.
Yeah.
I had the snowfall forecast map up while you were reading that, and showed the area down in the Central Appalachians. In fact, I noticed that the European actually gets it down almost to me, uh, for some like a half an inch. I would love to see it, but no matter if it happens, it happens. If it doesn't, it doesn't. Now, well,
And
this
by the way, I spoke too soon. This is amazing. It's November, late November, and yet this is like a multi-paragraph snow discussion. And I didn't even get down to the last few lines of the final paragraph here, but in talking about, I just mentioned, I don't know why they didn't mention the Catskills and the Poconos. Here they say it. The most likely regions on Friday will be in the higher elevations above 1,500 feet, including the Catskills and the Poconos, where WPC probabilities have now increased to 50 to 70% for 6+ inches, and across portions of the Ohio Valley, where they are 30 to 50% for 4 or more inches. There you go.
Now the digital forecast. This was updated late. This was updated at 7 p.m. But the offices are adding numbers, so I could check this an hour or 2 hours later, and there'll be more on here. But they did actually have an 11 print here for Hunter Mountain, and they got this, in the Catskills, they've got this big, patch of by the color scheme that I'm seeing, I'm going to guess that that's like an area of 4 to 8. Also, around and just south of Scranton. Also, when you go further west from between Scranton and Williamsport, in some of the higher peaks, they even have stuck in, some coloring which would indicate a coating to an inch in Orange County, in Dutchess County, and Points North. They actually have a two print in Western Passaic County. So they're going to fill in these holes in the next 24 hours. So tomorrow we should have a pretty good idea of what the Weather Service actually thinks about this. And also, for the first time since the few times we used it last winter, I like to look at this probability map from WPC, and this is the probability for at least two. And I like to use the darkest blue line for me is the 40 to 50% probability for at least two. I have often found that that usually verifies for two. So if you look at how they have it drawn, they have it just outside northwest New Jersey, and then up, through the Catskills and points north. Then it starts to cut off as you head toward, closer to 87, and then goes west across southern New York, northern Pennsylvania, all high probabilities. That salmon color represents 80 to 90% probability for at least two. And here we have on the Central Appalachians, we're talking about 95 to 100% probability in that darkest red down through West Virginia. And that's the area where they've already, hoisted up some winter storm watches. I'll go a little bit wider here. Uh, and by the way, this takes us through Friday night. So I suspect if you looked at this earlier today, it was the area was much smaller and the probabilities were lower. Obviously, with the afternoon models, they kind of blossomed. Oh God, I can't speak tonight. Blossomed them out, and now tomorrow morning, I'm suspecting that we're going to see this area get a bit bigger. There's a chance that it could get, they could get into some accumulating snow in northwest Jersey. I don't think that's impossible. And maybe in western portions of Orange County, and certainly up into Sullivan County and points north and west of there. Why not? Again, upper lows can do very strange things. So just, keep an open mind with this. High probabilities for at least a couple. I'm going to take this up to four. And you can see the higher probabilities up in the Dakotas. And then you go out west, where we're talking the Cascades and the Sierra Nevadas, where we're seeing high probabilities for at least four from the Canadian border all the way down into from the Cascades and then down into the Sierra Nevada. So this is all playing out rather nicely. Again, there was the watches and warnings that we have. Not much going on with respect to severe weather tonight. We've got no severe weather from the Storm Prediction Center. They actually had a marginal risk earlier in this zone from Florida northward, a small area of marginal risk, but they've taken that away now. So we've got just general thunderstorm activity. And then tomorrow, into Thursday morning, they've got the general thunderstorm line now pushed up to the Connecticut-Massachusetts border, into the middle Hudson Valley, to about Port Jervis, which is sort of the triple point between New Jersey, New York, and Pennsylvania, and crossing through northern Pennsylvania, then going right down the East Coast to Florida. And then Thursday into Friday, no thunderstorms, Joe. No thunderstorms are forecast for Friday. And WPC's rainfall, this was another thing they've gotten more bullish on, from central New Jersey, basically go 195 northward, inch and a half, and they actually have, now this is going to cover the whole event. So we're looking at, right, this actually takes us through next Tuesday night, but this is covering the precip for the whole event. And they've got a solid inch and a half to 2 inches plus, from 195 going northward through just about all of New York State, much of New England. You can see the area in the Appalachians where they got that winter storm watch up, and also along the lake fronts in Northwest PA, Northeast Ohio. And then, of course, in the West, we've been saying this for days, 10 inches or more in the yellow areas in Northern California to Southwest Oregon. So they've just been basically running the tape there. And we've got heavy precip up and down uh, Western Oregon, Western Washington, and also heavy precip up. It'll be mostly snow in central and northern Idaho and in parts of northwestern Montana. I think we should show this upper low, right?
Right.
Okay. So you could see here today, the upper low is forming in North Dakota. You got that storm off the west coast, and then here it comes. It just gets forced southeastward over the Great Lakes, deepens as it does so, and it gets very complicated here because it closes off one low center that kind of moves up toward New York City and points north, and then another lobe is down in Western Virginia, and then it
Kind
just
of like a dumbbell.
rotates. Yeah, it just dumbbells and rotates around, and eventually the low center drops southeastward to off the New Jersey coast, and then heads out to the east. I mean, this is Saturday afternoon, and we're still under the influence of the upper low. And you're right, the wind is probably going to kick up more so later in the forecast period as opposed to earlier.
Absolutely. As you could see on what you just showed with the positioning of the upper low, we're kind of like right underneath it on Friday, and so there'll be wind, but I mean like not you have to wait until that thing like rolls to the east of us, and then look at the gradient. Look at that northwest or northwest flow coming around the backside of the upper low. That's going to be aimed right toward us for Saturday into Sunday. So we're going to get everything thrown at us, I think, but the kitchen sink. Rain, you wanted rain, you're going to get rain. Heavy rain, yeah, there's going to be some heavy rain too. Thunderstorms, maybe there may be enough lift or forcing of the atmosphere to allow for some flashes of lightning and rumbles of thunder tomorrow night. And then all of you who are saying that, oh, winter, it's not going to be all that much, not going to see any stuff. You may, depending upon your elevation, may see quite a bit of the white stuff. And then as this all rolls away, it says, okay, here's the final swat, some gusty, strong winds for Saturday and on into Sunday.
82 likes so far, Joe. So that's good. Thank you for those of you who have hit the like button. As I said earlier, we love it when you take it to 100. By the way, look at this thing. You got one lobe that's down. Let me get rid of the color for a moment. You got part of that one upper low that's kind of sitting there in West Virginia. And then you got this one that closes off in Western Connecticut. This is Friday at 1 a.m. That upper low that's over in Western Connecticut goes westward and closes off right over the Catskills and then drops down into Northeast PA. That's where you probably, if you're going to if somebody's going to get clobbered, it's going to be in that area from the Catskills down to Northeast PA and maybe even into Northwest New Jersey, again above 7,500 or 1,000 feet, and then ultimately it goes out and moves away, and finally probably may have to wait until Sunday to see some genuine improvement in weather conditions. But at least Well, there's two pluses here, Joe. The rain Wednesday night into Thursday is certainly helpful, and the snow's going to be also very helpful with respect to any leftover brush fires that are running that are still around, or the embers of those brush fires that are still around. This should really knock those out, I would think.
Oh, absolutely. No question about it. This is what the doctor ordered, and for all of those firefighters who have been working so very, very hard, day in and day out for the last week or couple of weeks, this is what you needed, and you're going to get. By the way, Joe, Northwest New Jersey, been there a couple of times. High Point State Park, elevation 1,804 feet. They have that obelisk that kind of looks like the Washington Monument that marks the top of the highest point in New Jersey. So at 1804, that certainly is going to be within range of getting, based upon the discussion from WPC, certainly that could very well be a place where 6, 10, 12 inches of snow could fall
Yeah.
before it's all over.
I just pulled up a sounding from that northwest corner of New Jersey, and this is for Thursday evening, where they have a temperature of 33, and the freezing level looks like it's right around 950 millibars. I mean, so that's what that's got to be 1,000 feet, right?
I believe
Roughly,
so. I believe
roughly.
so. In fact, that's the bottom level, the R1 level of the Nam Foos. And if I remember correctly, that boundary layer goes up to about, yeah, about 1,000, 1,100 feet.
And then for Friday morning, it's about the same, 33 for a temperature. Yeah, and that's the thing. This is going to be one of those deals where when it's snowing in those inland areas and in those mountain areas, the temperatures are going to get down to like it's going to be a wet snow at 32, 33. So if it comes down, obviously it's got to come down with some intensity to accumulate. But if it does, it will accumulate, no question. And then you see what happens with the surface flow. So here's our rain for tomorrow night, and there's a lot of dark greens and even the yellow that pops up there Thursday. Well, this is all total precip. But if we do it, I'll do it from the radar perspective here so you can see what the radar looks like. Again, you got this rain tonight, and it just kind of fizzles, and then you start to see the showers that get generated by the big occlusion that goes through. And this is tomorrow, this is at 1 a.m. Thursday. So you've got some heavy, this is all, I think you could say that all the stuff that's in yellow is convective.
Yes, I would think so. I would think that, even though we're only in a general thunderstorm area, and I'm not saying it's going to be severe, but um, I don't know. It looks like there's a pretty good chance we could see maybe even a line or a cluster of thunder storms with this, or thunder showers with this. So it's like I said, this is as I just said a few moments ago. It's everything but the kitchen sink that's going to be thrown at us over a 48-hour period.
Right. The surface low, that triple point surface low pops up off the just east of Sandy Hook and south of Islip, and just basically sits near Long Island, then goes up to the northwest with the upper low, and then rotates around with the upper low. It's like almost completely captured with it. And there's showery rains that are going on. There might be a break for a little while from New York City south, and then on Friday you start to get into some showery rains in the afternoon and evening, and then that goes out, and then it looks like the showers start to really thin out on Saturday. But the gradient is that's when the wind's going to really start to really get gusty. Would be late Friday night and during the day, Saturday into Saturday night. 'Cause that's when the gradient is at its tightest.
Yeah,
And bu
absolutely.
and by the way, while all that's going on, all the cold air with that is getting dragged down all the way into Florida. If we show you I'll just show you the temperature anomalies here. I mean, you have below normal temperatures out of this that get all the way down, all the way down to Florida and into Cuba, for God's sake. I mean, so this is a very, very potent system pulling down all this cold air. And as we move along, I'll go back to the what's going to happen afterward. So we get into Monday. There's a system that heads to the lower lake, the central lakes, I should say, and there's one of these warm front cold front combinations. So there might be maybe some rain or showers. That doesn't look like much for Tuesday, into Tuesday night, Wednesday, and then it turns a little colder. Then there's some kind of wave on the front that's from Tennessee that runs northeast, would imply, if this is correct, that there will be precipitation developing during Thanksgiving Day. The GFS run today has a low in southwest PA and snow in areas just north and west of New York City into central New England, and then that goes out. Then we get a shot of, if this is right, Joe, there's a shot of rather cold air coming in for Thanksgiving weekend. It's got thicknesses that get down to 510, yeah, 510 thickness here by Saturday morning, November 30th. I mean, we are in a pattern where we're getting cold air masses from Canada. The spigots from Canada are opened up, and in the longer term, going into those first days of December, there's another one that follows. So, you know, things as we said last night. Well, of course, that storm that it had last night. Right now it's gone. Um, that's not to say it couldn't come back, but the overall takeaway was that we're going in. Obviously the pattern has changed, and we're going into something different. And it looks also to be, that we are going to be getting shots of cold air coming down, and that temperatures may be below normal on more days than they're above normal in the next couple of weeks.
WPC, by the way, has put out a special statement concerning Thanksgiving, the holidays for travelers, talking about frigid temperatures, bitter cold temperatures, as low as, in some cases in the plain states, 10 below zero, and talking about here in the mid Atlantic and Northeast, stormy conditions with everything from very strong winds, rain, snow, you name it, we'll get it. So this looks like one of the more active, unfortunately for Thanksgiving travelers, one of the more active weather patterns shaping up for the Thanksgiving holiday weekend.
Well, you know what we got, Joe? We got
What
a
do we
hundred
got?
likes,
We got 100 likes.
so
Let's ring that
you have
bell.
to ring the bell.
There we go.
Um, Paul Roman, what do I think? What
Frank
probably?
Scalera, thanks a lot, Frank. Frank Scalera says Joe Rayo, perfect timing to put up the Christmas lights. I'll remind my wife of that when
You
I'm
should
out
have
there.
just gone. Why do you have to wait for her? You could have just gone out and did the Christmas
Oh, I
lights.
want dinner. She has a number of different things that she could hold over my head if I disobey.
Oh,
I'm
Jesus.
I am the very cooperative husband.
Paul Roman, what set off this pattern change? Well, I probably would have to, I probably would point to two things. Um, stuff that was going on in the Pacific. Of course, my 65-year-old brain can't remember specifically, but I also think that the fact that Sarah, Tropical Storm Sarah, did not become a hurricane, and the way some of the models were having it, not become a major hurricane in the north central Caribbean and then move into the Gulf of Mexico, um, was a big was a big deal because had it done that, it would have enhanced the southeast ridge to some extent again. I mean, ultimately, we may have still wound up getting to where we're going, but it may have been put off by a few days. But we also had the Atlantic storm, the storm that was sitting out um, south of Atlantic Canada in one form or another for the better part of a week. I think that also drove the stake through the heart of the southeast ridge. So I think those were the primary drivers, I believe. And Mr. Flood wants me to look at Ann Shambles to see, what she says. So in the long range, so we'll do that really quick, and then we'll do some Briller Jeopardy around here. Um, well, let's see. Well, the GFS has troughs in the east for the coming into the east on and off for the next 2 weeks. And if we look at the ensembles, okay, so here we are. We're at about day 10 or 11 here. I mean, the heights are below normal in the east. This is not a warm look, by the way, on the ensembles. Now that everything's changed, this is actually a fairly cold look going into the first part of December. It's encouraging. You've got ridging in the west and on up through Alaska. We don't have like last year, which was like that endless Alaskan trough that set up from Alaska down the west coast and just completely cut off access to any kind of cold air out of Canada. That's not there. That's not there right now. Okay, and it's not going to be there. Um, all right, I know you didn't see the maps. I got to put the maps back up. I'm sorry, my fault. Um, so there you go. So here's the these are the ensembles and shambles. Okay, come on, start moving. So I'll just roll it back here. But you can see what we go from. The sort of troughing in the west, ridge in the east, the Atlantic trough that I mentioned. The southeast ridge just could completely flatten out. Pressure's returning to near normal in the Caribbean. That's a big deal. Okay. Kind of blocky here with what's going on now. And then, one trough pulls out, but another one comes back in. You've got higher than normal pressures all across the Arctic region from Greenland on westward. So that displaces the whole jet further south. The other thing I would say, Joe, is that, with this kind of a look, if there's a shortwave in there somewhere, it might it might bring a snow threat along the way in the next couple of weeks. It's just speculating, but but
With all of that cold air, and I know all the snow lovers out there would probably say, "Well, gee, all that cold air, we don't want to waste all of that. We got to have something to deal with, or mix in with it." So yeah, and in fact, Tom Contino is jumping up and down because he's talking about a potential snow threat on the European for around the 3rd of
oh,
December.
well, yeah, it's like the on the 360. Yeah, it gave about 4 inches around New York City and 6 to 8 from New Jersey south to Virginia back to Tennessee. Southern Stream System. Yeah, lock it in at 360 hours, folks. It's gonna happen. All right. Uh,
I will only point out to Mr. Contino that that was the 12Z run, and if you look back just 12 hours earlier on the European run, they had nothing along the Mid-Atlantic and northeastern United States. All of a sudden,
right.
admittedly, they have an area of rain and possible embedded thunderstorms down in the southeast, but they apparently, pushed that rapidly in 12 hours into the northeast to cause all of that potential snow threat. Really,
Uh,
again, you don't hang your hat on anything that comes out beyond, let's say, well, I would say beyond 5 days or whatever. But when you're dealing with 240 hours, 360 hours, it's going to change. You know that, and I'll
yeah,
tell you what,
of
whatever you see
course.
on the 360, go opposite to what the 360 says because rarely, and I do mean rarely, does anything that translates from 360 to what actually happens.
No, it hard. Yeah, there's a 99.9. Yeah, right, Rich Rosbansky, the 884 hours always on target. Um, However, I will give you that if with the pattern we're going into is the kind of pattern you want so that something could happen. Let's let it lay at that. If we could pull, if we're seeing what we're seeing now with what we got, uh, I think that gives you at least a positive signal with regards to what could happen over the next 2 or 3 weeks. So, we'll we get into it when we get into the short range. Michael McGuire, thanks for hitting the super chat tonight with the upper air pattern already changing to something completely different from last year. That's correct. I'm hopeful for my first snowfall in over 3 years down Carolina way. Hey, if you're in in the Western Carolina mountains, you're probably going to get some snow out of this. But yeah, if the pattern that shows up on the ensembles favors something that along the lines of a southern storm track with cold air to the north. So you've got at least the ensemble saying that the pattern. could be conducive. But as far as specifics are concerned, you really can't go with the GFS or the European in those long ranges because there's just way too much variability. Oh, I have to show you this, by the way, Joe. This is the 18Z GFS snow map, okay, which gives Scranton 31.3 inches, okay. Middletown 14.6, Oneonta 11.1, Poughkeepsie 2.2. It actually gives near you, it gives 5. Okay. Bridgewater, New Jersey, an inch and a half. Allentown, 4.5. Now let's look at this because we have the 18Z European now, and that now goes out to a
Are you
hundred.
putting that up on the screen? Because I'm still seeing
Yeah,
a.
it's up there. It was
Okay.
up there.
Maybe I have to
Uh,
refresh.
yeah, you might want to refresh.
There you go. Oh, all right. There you go.
All right, so the European, which looks a bit more reasonable, has 1.9 for Poughkeepsie, 5 for Middletown, 13.3 for Scranton. But forgetting the numbers, I think when you look to see how where the max area is and how it shapes up, something like this is not impossible. Both the European and the GFS actually have a similar look, just that the GFS kind of went a little nuts with its numbers. But it does push snow into north and northwestern New Jersey counties, Morris County, Sussex, Warren, Western Passaic, New York City. It gives 6/10 of an inch. So there you go. Uh, but again, I'm showing these snow maps up just for fun because they're almost never right about any of this. At the end of the day, you got to use it. You got to do it the old-fashioned way. Figure out how much precip is going to occur. Figure out your weather conditions, and then do the math. And then you come out with something you can actually work with that sounds reasonable. So here we go. So, Briller Jeopardy tonight. It's Thanksgiving records at New York City Central Park. The snowiest Thanksgiving, Joe.
The snowiest Thanksgiving.
That's
It
an
either
easy one.
well, I would presume that it was the one that we lived through in 1989.
And that is correct, Frank R. and Joe Rayo. Yes, 1989, 23rd November 1989, 4.4. I
And you know
got
those.
eight. I got 8 inches at my house, and it was 11 degrees the next morning. Coldest temperature of the whole winter, biggest snowfall of the whole winter.
I remember that particular morning well because yours truly was filling in for Mr. Chiappi at News 12 Long Island. And I can also tell you from memory that the anchor that morning, the news anchor that morning, was not Carol Silva or Lee Tyrell, but it was Roma Torrey.
Ah,
The Roma Torrey.
yes.
Yes.
Next one. How many Thanksgivings at Central Park recorded at least 1 inch of snow?
Well, you know, the only other Thanksgiving that stands out is the one that my grandfather told me he took my mom to the Thanksgiving Day parade in 1938. There was a significant snowfall, and in fact, the funny thing about that was that came only about a month after the one of the latest 90-degree temperatures in Central Park. But the only and there was another Thanksgiving more recent than 1989. And I mean, we had snow up here in Putnam Valley.
Right.
I have to say that I'd say Thanksgiving snow, measurable snow,
No, 1 inch, at least one
1 inch.
inch.
I would say it's few and far. I'd say like maybe four times.
Well, you know what, Joe? Alan said 4. Frank Scalera said 4. Frank R. said 4. Chuck Cardillo said 4. Christina Pedia said 4. And you're all correct. It was 4. The coldest temperature ever on Thanksgiving Day. I assume this was the low temperature for the day, by the way.
I would presume it would be the same. No, actually, it doesn't necessarily have to be coinciding with snowstorms. I mean, we can have some cold Thanksgivings without snow.
Right.
So you want the temperature or
Yes, the temperature. I assume this was the low of the low temperature of the day.
well, I'll say 23.
It's actually A bit too high. A bit too high.
Wow.
Let's see if anybody on Alan got on the chat board. 15 is correct. 15. Give Alan a ring. Ring the bell. Ring the bell for Alan. 1871, Joe. 1871.
Oh
Uh,
my goodness.
and the runner-up was 17, and that was not that long ago. That was back in 2018. 17 was the low that morning. The warmest Thanksgiving.
Oh, I could remember a few warm ones. In the early part of this, like around 2005 or 2007, we had like close to 70 degrees, I think, one time.
Uh, Very good. 2007. The warmest Thanksgiving, I'm sorry. The warmest Thanksgiving was 69. 69, Rich Rothmansky got that one. In 1933, okay, way back. So if anybody tells you it's never been this warm this time of year, well, they're wrong. The runner-up was 66 in 2007.
Yeah, I
66
remember that.
and the wettest Thanksgiving.
How about 1971?
How about 1971? No, not the wettest. Well, how about not the wettest? This would be, let's see if anybody's going to get this one. Anthony Orr says 1989. And Chris, no, that's the snow year in 1989. So this is the wettest Thanksgiving. Um, Vincent Croce very close with the rainfall amount, 2 inches. This was in up. Frank R got it, 2006. Give him a bell ring. That's a stat
I
to
don't even,
remember.
I don't remember that.
No, 1.72 inches of rain in 2006,
Wow.
and
I can
there.
remember the 1971. It was a big storm. The nor'easter that so windy, in fact, on that day that they had to cancel the Macy's balloons, and I have a fair amount of precipitation. And in fact, some of our northwestern suburbs picked up a significant snowfall from that storm, and
Oh,
it makes me even sick to my stomach to think that was over a half a century ago,
I know,
and
isn't
I
it
remember like it was
disgusting?
yesterday.
Well, I mean, just the fact that we're doing this show on Friday, it's been 5 years that we were kicked out of FiOS.
November 13th.
Well, I was trying to remember the actual date. Um,
It was supposed to
yeah,
be November 15th, and then those wonderful people over at Altice pressured Verizon to shut us down 2 days early because there was a short period where both News 12 and FiOS One News was on the same system, the Verizon
right.
system. So,
Well, we'll talk all about that on Friday.
yes.
Yeah, God willing. All right. Okay, it's coming up on 8:30 Eastern time, and I think we'll wrap it up for tonight. So we'll see you everybody tomorrow night at 7:35 p.m. 115 likes. Thank you very much. And Michael, excuse me, Michael McGuire. Thank you very much for hitting Super Chat. Don't forget, you can support the Joe and Joe Weather Show podcast. Shop our affiliate link at the top of the chat board from Amazon. Okay, it doesn't cost you anything. Just do your Christmas shopping on there, and Amazon will throw us back a little bit of coin to make and it doesn't come out of your own pocket, and everybody walks away happy. You get your stuff, you've spent your money, you don't spend anything extra. Amazon gives us a little bit of a kickback, and it's all good. And this is all in the interest of disclosure. Okay, so
Yeah.
there you go. All right, well, so we'll see everybody tomorrow night. Bye bye.
Good night, folks.